There are so many scripts up here, I'm not sure which one I'm to read. Monroe and Ann, I was enormously pleased to be asked to say a few words about this year's recipient of the Joe Craft Humanitarian Award. For not only am I a past beneficiary of Monroe's wise counsel, but I am a current beneficiary of his friendship. I trust that I will do the job that he so richly deserves. The 1980 version of Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary defines the word humanitarian as a person promoting human welfare, of, related to, or characterized by philanthropy. Monroe Carroll, today's honoree, accommodates perfectly to that definition. A native Nashvilleian, Monroe spent 4 years in Uncle Sam's Navy before enrolling in Vanderbilt School of Engineering with the aid of the GI Bill. As a student, he had the good sense and the good fortune to renew a friendship with Julia Ann Scott, a happening which led to marriage even before his 1959 graduation with a BS degree in electrical engineering, cum laude. He first went to work selling electrical equipment to electrical utilities, and later the Carrolls moved to Shelbyville, where Monroe was the chief engineer for something that I had never heard of, the Duck River Electrical Membership, a rural electrical company that was undertaking massive expansion at the time. Meanwhile, his father in retirement had started a small parking lot business called Central Parking. And in the late 1960s, after a lot of soul searching, Ann and Monroe agreed to return to Nashville, where Monroe, at his father's request, took a job with Central Parking at a reduced rate of pay, and the rest is history. Today, more than 30 years later, the Central Parking Corporation is the largest publicly held parking and transportation management company in the world. It is also the enterprise which has given the Carroll family the financial muscle to deepen their support of philanthropic interests which had long been the recipient of lesser forms of Carroll generosity. Interests which focus mainly on their church and other programs of benefit to young people and families. Notable among their major gifts are some of those that Martha mentioned, are those to Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, the establishment of an endowed chair in pediatric cardiology, the development of a first pediatric intensive care unit, and provision of the major lead gift to the current $50 million capital campaign for construction of a new freestanding children's hospital, a campaign which will be successful and which, by the way, he also chairs. Still other gifts include 8 full tuition scholarships at Vanderbilt for academically sound undergraduates with continuing interests outside the classroom, and 8 scholarships at Aquinas College for students who seek a degree in teaching. The Carrolls have also made strong commitments to nature and the arts, especially as they affect children. They recently provided major funding for a new woodland sculpture trail at Cheekwood as part of that institution's recently successful capital campaign, which Mr. Carroll co-chaired. Further, for a number of years, his company has been the primary sponsor of the Nashville Symphony's Pied Piper Concert Series for children. Additional funding has been provided for community activity rooms in several churches as venues for social programs which can help to strengthen the relationship between families and their church. And just recently, a major gift for the construction of a new library and informatics center at Harpeth Hall was announced. Major gifts such as these cannot be made without large contributions of financial substance. What then of the person who shares of his substance so generously? To many, Monroe Carroll's business persona is that of a dynamic, competitive, results-oriented, and no-nonsense executive with an extraordinarily strong work ethic. The success of his business affords visible testimony to hard work and long hours away from home. True to form, I can also tell you that he brings many of these same attributes to the worthy programs that he chooses to serve. He wants to get involved. He will take the time to understand their challenges. His leadership of the campaign for a new children's hospital is illustrative of his level of involvement. His passion for the hospital exudes all the way from his many speeches to large groups to smaller one-on-one solicitations of prospective major donors. He personally recruited a 25-member campaign executive committee and personally trained 40 campaign volunteers in small group sessions over a 30-day period, and he continues to host a series of campaign dinners. Bob McNeely once said to me that Monroe makes a development officer's job look easy, and that is true. Ann Carroll says that Monroe's competitive streak is often visible at any of Nashville's benefit auctions where he might first open the bidding to get the ball rolling, knowing that the dollars are needed, only to let his competitive instincts take over and lead eventually to the purchase of something that neither he nor she need. This is also a person, though, with a sensitive and tender-hearted streak that is a mile wide. A person who truly believes in the spirit of brotherhood and understands the importance of sharing. He hasn't forgotten his roots, and he isn't afraid to shed a tear in public. I'm reminded of a conversation with a children's hospital nurse who remembered fondly the first time that she met Monroe Carroll and they talked about the babies in the neonatal intensive care unit. She was enormously touched when tears appeared in his eyes. He later visited the NICU where he was again willing to shed a tear. She said that in all of her touring with visitors to the hospital, she had never met another man who was so unashamed to share his feelings in public in response to the heart-wrenching stories that sometimes surround an NICU baby. She concluded her remembrance by saying, "He has such a big heart." The size of that heart is most evidenced, at least for me, by some of his smaller gifts, almost all of which are absent any form of public recognition. For example, on learning that many families of NICU babies live away from Nashville and simply cannot afford to call in or visit their babies each day of an extended stay, he paid for the installation of a dedicated telephone near the NICU so that the nurses could call the parents each day with a progress report on their babies. And he arranged for the bills for all of those calls to be sent to him. Still today, as part of the nursing plan for each baby, there's apt to be a written order that may read something like this: please call Mom daily at 2 p.m. Ann and Monroe Carroll have lived very private lives. Their public visibility has been elevated in recent years by their generosity. I am confident that neither of them ever dreamed that the Lord would bless them with the financial rewards that they now enjoy. Their marriage has been a true partnership. Ann raised their 3 daughters while Monroe was on the road, and even so, Monroe made every effort to reserve as much of each weekend as possible for home and family. Described by Ann as a marvelous husband and father, Monroe has spent his life as a head rooster surrounded by 4 women, and he's loved every minute of it. His is a close family. They spend a lot of time together. Carroll gifts are as likely as not to be a family affair. Daughters Catherine Brown, Edie Johnson, and Julie Stadler have all worked for Central Parking. Julie now sits on the board. Monroe once said that his children and grandchildren were his hobby and his sport. Today, with 6 grandchildren, he can often be found at a soccer game or a basketball game on a Saturday afternoon, or in the swimming pool, where he is known affectionately as the Big Gorilla. Impressively, the Carroll grandchildren have found that the Carroll commitment to charity has spread to them. Granddaughter Claire Stadler and a friend sold pumpkins and made the first gift from children to the Children's Hospital campaign. And little Monroe Stadler's class at Innsworth knitted caps for NICU babies as a class project, and granddaughter Carol Brown worked as a volunteer water girl for a recent run for cancer awareness. I'm reminded of a last Monroe Carroll story that I think says much about our honoree. Late one night, he and Ann were picked up at the airport by a driver who Monroe engaged in casual conversation, eventually including the question, "Have you ever driven any celebrities?" In turn, the driver inquired as to the nature of Monroe's business, to which Monroe replied that he was in the parking business and that he was the founder of the Central Parking Corporation. To which the driver quickly replied, "Man, you're the biggest shot I've ever driven. And you're just a regular guy. You're not one of those guys who's caught up in his own oxygen." Monroe, one can only say that our community is indeed fortunate that you and yours passed its way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. From the remarks today, it is obvious you have all made a very wise choice. So, Mr. Carroll, if you'll please join us up here as Judy Lift presents you with your honor.
I'm going to, right here, because then everybody can hear me. It gives me great pleasure to be able to present on behalf of the community and the Community Foundation the Joe Kraft Humanitarian Award, certainly well-deserved from all you've heard, to Monroe Carroll. How lucky we are that you live among us in Middle Tennessee. Thank you for everything you've done, and then some.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I've got some contribution forms outside in the lobby there we'll pass out. But I do want to thank everyone who's come out today, and I really do appreciate all of you sharing this honor with me, and I really consider it in that light. I feel very humble to be part of something that remembers Joe Kraft and all of the others who have followed Mr. Kraft, and I really am, as I say, very honored to and humble to receive this award. Nashville is a wonderful place to live. It's a wonderful place to raise our families. The Community Foundation has done a great job of enhancing this city and the quality of life that we enjoy, and I'm sure that the Community Foundation will be even more important as we go forward when you consider the short period of time that it's had an influence on this community. Many cities depend very heavily on corporate contributions. Our city, Nashville, I think is unique in the strong commitment of the individual and the individual's foundation or a foundation such as the Community Foundation. Hugh McCall and I were talking several weeks ago, and he's brought this up specifically. He said he thought Nashville was probably blessed with the most philanthropic individuals of any city of its size that he was aware of. And I think that speaks well for all of us here in this room. And more importantly, I think it sets a good example for those to follow. I understand as a recipient of the Joe Kraft Memorial Award that I have the opportunity to contribute the proceeds from this fund to a charity of my choice. And as you've heard, children are my choice. And as a consequence, I would like for this contribution to go to the Development Fund for the new Children's Hospital. I want to thank you again. Ann and I have certainly been blessed. We've been blessed with good friends. We've been blessed with the ability to do some of the things we talked about. But we've been the recipients of it all, whether it's feeling good about it or seeing the results of it. And we're very pleased to be here in Nashville, and we look forward to many more years of being an integral part of the community and hopefully helping many of the other wonderful charities that we're blessed with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll, for what you have done and what you will continue to do.